It's the magic of math here, and today we're talking rates, and we're going to determine the number of umbrellas that can be made per hour given a rate. Here we go. We have a question here that has two parts, and we're told that it takes workers at a factory 2 hours and 30 minutes to produce 160 umbrellas. We're going to use this information to determine part A and then part B. So in part A, at this rate, which of the following is closest to the total number of umbrellas that workers can produce in 8 hours? And you're given 4 answer choices. So here's where you pause the video, you do your best work, and then come back to see mine. Good luck. Welcome back. So we have a worker at a factory, or workers, and it takes them 2 hours and 30 minutes, which in math is 2.5 hours, 30 minutes is half of an hour, to produce 160 umbrellas. So that's a rate. So we know that we have 160 umbrellas that are produced in 2.5 hours. That is a rate. What we want to know is at this rate, right here, 160 umbrellas in 2.5 hours, which is the closest to the total number of umbrellas that workers can produce in 8 hours. So now we're going to create a proportion using this information, 8 hours. That's what we want to know, how many in 8 hours. So to write our proportion, we're going to make an equivalent ratio. We don't know how many umbrellas, but we know the amount of time the workers are working is 8 hours. So if they can make 160 in 2.5 hours, how many umbrellas can they make in 8? So mathematically, we're going to change our question mark to our x, our variable, our unknown, the number of umbrellas produced in 8 hours. So we're going to use cross product property to solve this. We're going to do 2.5 or 2.5 multiplied by x, and that is going to be equal to the other 160 multiplied by 8. So we're going to do this math. 160 times 8 is 1,280. To solve for x, the number of umbrellas produced in 8 hours, we're going to divide both sides by the coefficient. So we're going to take 2.5 and divide both sides by 2.5. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other. 2.5 divided by 2.5 gives you 1, or x, so we have x left over here. And then using your calculator, 1280 divided by 2.5 is 512. So we know that 512 umbrellas were made in 8 hours. I can see that none of these answer choices are 512. But going back to the question, they said which one is the closest. So the closest to 512 is 500. So approximately 500 umbrellas can be made in 8 hours if 160 were made in 2.5, and it's a constant rate. All right, let's move on to part B, and we're asked how many hours, rounded to the nearest hour, will it take workers to produce 1,100 umbrellas? Here, I'd like you to pause, try this part B, and come back to see my work. Good luck. Welcome back. So again, we're going to do how many hours, rounded to the nearest hour, will it take workers to produce 1,100 umbrellas? So we're going to start with our original rate that we used in part A. So we know 160 umbrellas were made in 2.5 hours, and we want to know how long will it take to produce 1,100 umbrellas. So x now becomes my number of hours. That's my unknown. 2.5 hours to make 160. How many to make 1,100? So let's use cross product again. I'm going to do 160 times x. Remember, order doesn't matter. I could have gone this from the denominator to the numerator, or I could start with the numerator to the denominator. So that's 160x. Now we're going to do 2.5 times 1,100. 160x will stay. 2.5 times 1,100 is 2,750. To solve for x, I'm going to divide by 160. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. 160 divided by 160 is 1, leaving me x. Use your calculator, and you get 17.1875. Again, this says to the nearest hour. So the nearest hour here would be 17. Seeing as this is less than 5, we're going to keep it at 17. We're not going to round up. So 17 hours to produce 1,100 umbrellas. And there you have it. That is how you use rates to determine a bigger or a smaller problem. Thanks for joining me today at The Magic of Math, where we continue to master math one video at a time. I hope you have a great day and come back soon.